Excellent. So, welcome everybody, and welcome to our next installation of webinars for Spry Physical Therapy. And today, our theme is Scaling Specialty Physical Therapy, Smarter Care and Stronger Business. I am honored to have two distinguished guests, Dr. Jamie Phillips, a wonderful physical therapist and a professional athlete, and Drew Collins, who has been my partner in crime and has also done a wonderful job really getting this product into the US market. So first, the introduction. Dr. Phillips, Dr. Jamie Phillips, is a founder of Ghost Rehab and Performance, a former professional hockey player turned doctor of physical therapy. With over a decade of experience in NCAA and professional levels of hockey and deep understanding of physical and mental demands athletes face, Dr. Phillips specializes in helping athletes recover faster, prevent injuries, and achieve their goals. Certified as strength and conditioning specialist, his mission is to blend cutting-edge therapy um, and to keep athletes performing at their best. So without any further ado, Dr. Phillips, I want to welcome you to our webinar and thank you for spending some time with us and sharing some of your insight and your wisdom. So first and foremost, again, thank you for being here. And the question is, tell us a little bit about your remarkable journey from athletics, from professional athletics to physical therapy and what it has entailed.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I've been joining these webinars as a viewer, so it's honorable. I'm very honored to be a guest, and I appreciate the kind words and the introduction there. So a little bit about me. So grew up in Canada, and as a Canadian, playing hockey is a birthright. So that was my first love, my first passion, and was able to earn a scholarship, played Division I hockey. From there, I was drafted and signed to the Winnipeg Jets in the NHL, played 4 years of professional hockey. Started to, going through that journey was, awesome. Gave me a lot of opportunities, a lot of resources, both financially and network-wise. But towards the end, I became pretty burnt out with everything. And unfortunately, every hockey career or sports career comes to an end. And I had to kind of redirect and think about what did I want to do post-career. And originally, when I was doing my undergrad, medicine, becoming a physician was kind of the plan. My mom is a doctor. My older brother's a doctor, kind of, following the family business of being a physician. Then I realized that after shadowing some physicians towards the end of my career, a lot of sports orthopedic surgeons, I realized that they just didn't really have as much one-on-one interaction with the athletes that I craved. Growing up, being an athlete, I just loved, coaching, be a part of that. I still coach hockey to this day. I like to be with the athletes. And so to see someone and see them under the knife and then say, oh, here you go to PT, that wasn't really my calling. So I went back to school to pursue a master's in exercise physiology, mainly because a lot of my credits had expired. The courses I took freshman, sophomore year, they were expired because they're 8 to 7 years old. So went and got a master's. It also helped me get back in the swing of things after about 4 years off of school. Applied to PT school at Central Michigan. Got in. They had a satellite campus up at Michigan Tech, which is in the middle of nowhere in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I was fortunate enough to be able to coach Division I hockey while I was going to school. So I was able to kind of be involved both on the athlete side while I was getting my education. And then upon graduation, going through the clinical rotations and stuff, I realized very quickly what I did and did not want to do as a physio. And I realized, okay, hey, let's, I know what I like. I know how to provide care, and I know exactly kind of what athletes are looking for. Let's just open a practice right out of school. Let's just jump right in and create kind of the specialty practice that I want to provide to my athletes. Let's do it right away. Let's not waste any time. Let's kind of jump full in.
That's awesome. So I think sometimes the best things are the ones that you just head right into, right? And you have a passion, you have an understanding, and you have the feel for that athletic patient population. So I guess the next thing to explore really is what would you say are some of the similarities of paying professional sports and also operating a business, operating a practice? And what are some of these parallels, and how do you use your experience, expertise in one to refine and to adapt to the other?
Well, the parallels of being, an athlete and then being a business owner is it is a 24/7 job. When you're an athlete, you're always doing what you can to elevate yourself, both physically, mentally, and all the kind of things that are entailed from the training, the rehab, the nutrition, the mental coaching, the all of it. And on the business side, it's the same thing, except we are treating our business the way the athletes treat their body. We're looking at different ways to improve, what through marketing, through sales, accounting, and then also on top of all that, providing the best possible patient care that we can give our athletes, give our patients. So it's both of it is just a nonstop 24/7 process of finding what works, what doesn't work, and then trying to use that classic word of optimize ourselves and our business so that we can serve our patients the best way possible.
So some of this optimization, right? Like when you're optimizing care, optimizing recovery, or optimizing performance. The theme of today's conversation really is that specialization. So being able to deliver this comprehensive advanced care process, but also being able to encompass a larger picture, like managing the entire individual, right? Entire athlete, not just body part. So when creating this specialty business, how do you really entail this specialization, but also this global overarching generalization of caretaking?
That's a good question. Really, when it comes to treating specific clientele, and so for my clientele, as I primarily treat hockey players, I would say about 90% of my caseload is hockey players. The first thing, and this kind of will encompass all aspects. So if someone's listening and they're really into baseball, football, or running, or it doesn't even have to be athletics. If you're really into like stroke rehab or whatever it is, this kind of is a broad statement that works for everyone. The first is you got to understand your patients. For me, it's a little easier because I had the experience of playing hockey from, basically the time I could walk. And then I continued to coach, and even until today, I have some lessons tonight. Is understanding your athlete and understanding that journey. So like when I get a player who is, let's just say I get a 14-year-old, like I understand where they are in hockey, where they are in their journey, versus if I get a player who's in the NHL, I understand where they are at that journey too and what they need. So it's understanding the person in front of you. And then from there, now we can apply our clinical experience, our clinical expertise, the physio knowledge we have to be able to help that person. So when we think about, the classic in PT speak, the multifaceted care, the biopsychosocial model, like it all comes into play. It just becomes a little bit more specific to the population that you have on your table. Like most hockey players come to me and they're these, most of them are male and they're these big burly gentlemen, and they think that, showing weakness and pain is some sort of like downside. They don't want to talk about their injuries because they're afraid of things. So it's like understanding that, like, hey, my job here is I'm not your coach. If you're hurt, my job is to get you better. I'm not going to tell your coach that you can or can't play or all these things. It's like, listen, if you're in pain or if you're having issues, that's okay. Like I need to know so I can help you. Or a big one is concussions. I'll have a lot of athletes who will sustain a concussion and won't tell anyone about it. And so when we go through concussion rehab, it's important. And I'm like, hey, like, what are you truly feeling? And the conversations they'll have with their coaches or teammates are going to be a lot different than the conversations they have with me. Like on the concussion side, they're usually not going to say like, yeah, I can't sleep. I'm having depression. I'm struggling with anxiety and things I've never had before. Where with me, it's like, I'll be able to use kind of like motivational interviewing to ask them questions, get them to open up. And then they'll be like, yeah, you're right. Like I didn't go to bed until 4 a.m. last night. And, I do struggle to see pucks on the ice and all these things. And then from there, I can explain that, hey, these are part of your symptoms and here's what we can do. And this is why this is normal. And here's a return to play strategy and timeline. and it helps it makes them feel like someone understands them. And that's really what it is, no matter your specialty, is people just want to be, they just want to be heard. Like they want to be heard, they want to be understood. And it helps if you are someone that has been through those experiences so that you can you kind of get it. Like I get what it's like to be traded. I get what it's like to be hurt and then to watch someone else take your job on the ice because you can't play and you're sitting in the stands. And I know that isn't a good feeling. And so to be able to emphasize and listen, it helps, and it helps with patient buy-in. And then with patient buy-in's high, usually compliance is high, and then results are better.
Hey, Jamie, Drew here. Appreciate you taking the time. Excited to see you. And Alex, thanks for the kind words. Distinguished in myself in the same sentence. I'm not sure about that, but Jamie, just quick question for you. In terms of the athletes that you're seeing, I know you mentioned a lot of the post-injury. How much work are you doing with some of these folks on the front end of it, right? As a way to prevent injuries and things like that. Do you have any folks who are coming to you as, hey, I don't want to get in a situation where I have to miss time. So what kind of things can I be doing on the front end? Or let's say that even the flip side of that too, we'll call it prehab in the sense of, hey, I do have an injury. I have a surgery coming up. I need to get back on the ice as soon as possible. How much of that are you seeing as well?
I would say to be honest, about 60 to 70% of my caseload would be like prehab or like maintenance care, depending on how we want to classify it. Because athletes, their body is their job, their body is their potential money maker, for some of them, a multi-million-dollar money maker. They want to take care of it, and they know what is at stake when you're missing time on the ice or time on the field. So a lot of it is when I talk to like athletes, whether that's through my direct marketing or through them finding me, it's like, hey, like I don't, or I have this little bump or bruise or something's happening or nothing at all. Be like, I want to stay healthy. And so that's when we come in. We do a lot of the baseline testing, getting on the force plates, strength testing, all that stuff, and then making sure that it's more like tailored rehab to their training, making sure that their training, they're not opening themselves to like a lot of overuse injuries and all those kind of things. But it's a good mix. And that's one of the advantages of being in like a cash clinic. I guess I didn't mention that. I'm a cash-based clinic or a network clinic. And so I have the freedom to practice that way without limitations, where, if an athlete comes to me in Michigan, we have direct access, but it's not full direct access. So when they come to me with a referral, we're able to make sure that we're doing all the little things and then working in tandem with either that's following a strength program through me or a strength coach or a strength program to another coach, that they're doing all the right things, checking all the right boxes to give themselves the best likelihood to prevent that injury.
Yeah, I think that's quite remarkable, and I think that it's just a testament that there is a market for a specialty care, especially when you have a specialist taking care of individuals that are in the need of care. So to discuss a little bit about the business strategy, I think you mentioned the strategy. And being able to to strategize about the recovery with some of these athletes, especially when it comes to protecting their investment, which is their performance, their sports play. What are some of the parallels that you would use with having business intelligence insight and having some form of inquiry into your deliverables? And how does that parallel to painting the same operational picture to your patient to get the buy-in, not just for the next visit or two, but to actually understand the entire longitude of the roadmap, right, of the recovery? So what are some of the things that you would say are parallel in this account?
Yeah, that's a good question. Paralleling marketing to patient care. A lot of it is just kind of it's a good question. Like, I could say attention and awareness. Like when you think of this like general marketing, it takes exposure to different things. So through my various channels, social media being probably the main one, that being free advertising, then through paid advertising, which we do locally here with Meta ads, as well as just like different email lists, banners and doing all the workshops, all that stuff, getting exposure to like, hey, I exist. this practice exists, what you're looking for exists, or if you don't know what you're looking for, here's why this can help you. And then when you get the patient on the table, it's the same thing. Well, someone will come in, for example, and be like, hey, my hip really hurts when I'm taking strides. And then so we'll go through that evaluation, and then we'll find different weaknesses, different imbalances. Maybe we do a single leg squat test and stuff, and they're really imbalanced on one leg and they're really weak and all these things. And then there's exposure. They're like, oh, I never realized I had these issues. And it's like, okay, well, you do have these issues. This is why it's contributing to your pain or discomfort or weakness. Here's what we can do about it. So a lot of it is it parallels in terms of your exposure, you're explaining, and then you're presenting a solution. And so it goes hand in hand. Unfortunately, I don't know about, I can't speak for everyone's PT education, but there was no business coaching in PT school. We had like one brief course where you had an unlimited budget to create your dream practice with no limitations and no anything. And so that's, unfortunately, it's not how real life works. I mean, at least not for me. And so a lot of these things are learning on the fly. But when you realize that as a clinician, you essentially are a salesperson, and you're selling that patient the confidence and the belief to follow their exercise program or that treatment plan that you know is going to work for them. It's the same in marketing. Like in marketing, you have to try to get exposure and to get patients in the door that have issues that you can solve, and getting that trust and buy-in with you. So like when we struggle with patient compliance in certain populations, fortunately in the athletic population, it's usually not an issue, but from experiences in other clinics, patient compliance sometimes is a challenge. But you got to remember that you are trying to sell them on that program. So like things like motivational interviewing and like all these different things that work, the way you speak to a patient, the way you present things, work both in your marketing and in your treatment and your plan of care.
And with that too, Jamie, we talk about some of like the marketing, and as you're talking to, we'll just call them, I guess, prospects or potential patients, how do you handle the situation of, especially with you being a cash pay clinic, which is a little bit, I don't want to say unique, but I would say probably the majority of clinics, right, are overwhelmingly taking at least some form of insurance. So for you, how do you kind of fight that battle of, well, I could just go to the XYZ clinic and they take my insurance and I have a $20 copay there, right? Why should I come to you and spend more than that? How do you have that conversation with folks and really get across your true value? So I would say that's kind of the first part. And then now on the flip side of that, how are you able to, especially at the beginning when things are really hard, right? And you don't have as many folks coming in, how did you fight that urge to just say, forget it, we're just going to do general MSK. I'll take any insurance I can because I have to grow my business because bills are due. How did you both of those things? How do you market it now, and how did you fight the urge to go to more of the generalized route and stay specialized like you were?
Yeah, good questions. I'll answer your second question first. Being around insurance-based clinics, I do know they need to exist because I know that not everyone can afford specialized care, and I totally get that. When being around, in clinics, the classic PT mills, seeing 20 plus patients a day, one, it's not sustainable mentally for most clinicians, myself included. And two, as I saw that the quality of care really wasn't there, and you spend more time looking at the clock trying to make sure you're getting in as many units as possible versus just treating your patient. Like most of my sessions are 60 seconds at a minimum. Just you get 60 minutes. Sorry, 60 minutes. You get 60 minutes. And then a lot of times they end up into an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. If I don't have a patient after and things are good and I don't have anything that I need to do, we'll just keep going. We'll just keep doing exercises. Like, why not? Like, it's not, yeah, am I getting billed for those hours? No, but they've already paid, they've invested, and I want them to get better, and I enjoy what I do. And so I spend that extra time with them because I want to, and I know it's going to help them. That's the first thing, is just like, I saw that and I was like, there's no going back. And then, to be frank with because the finances part is basically a big discussion in everything, and people seem to skirt around that that part of life and business. I was fortunate enough where through the money that I made playing hockey, and then through different online businesses and coaching things that I had to help me pay for school. I didn't come out of school with loans, and I had a little bit of money to play with to start the business. So I was never in a position where I was struggling to make rent or anything, because I did have a little bit of a grace period, and that is an important part of it. And then I also knew that the way that I like to treat, like I do primarily treat, I use a lot of dry needling, a lot of soft tissue work. I knew that going with insurance is the reimbursement rates were not going to be something sustainable. And the ways that I find that I get them best outcomes are I wouldn't make a lot due to insurance reimbursements. And because sometimes that's the biggest thing, really with athletes, is people like you know, and as PTs, we get into we all have our niches, and I think that's really good, because whatever works for the patient is the most important, and we forget that. So a lot of time with athletes, like athletes are already doing so much strength training and all those things. They're on the ice, they're on the field, they're on the court, and then they're in the gym, they're doing all these things. Most of them don't want to come to PT and then do more exercises. Like, we know that they need to do some of these exercises, but most of them want soft tissue, they want manual therapy, they want dry needling. And if that's going to help get buy-in, two, so they do their exercises, but two, give them whatever relief in terms of pain or soreness that they have, I'm going to provide that to them. Like, if I have an NHL hockey player come in and they're like, hey, like, I've had dry needling in the past, I really want that. And I go, nope, we're doing balance. I said, I don't think you need that. I think you just need to do balanced neuromuscular rehab, because I get better reimbursement for neuromuscular rehab. They're never going to come back to me. They just aren't. And so that's a part of it. But being able to explain, it's like, yeah, like maybe I really don't think they need soft tissue work, but be like, yeah, let's do a little bit of soft tissue work. And what this is going to allow me to do is free up your range, decrease pain, so that when we get out into the gym and we're doing upper body stability stuff with the tidal tank or whatever, you're going to feel so much better and stable. And then they go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And you can get that buy-in. I totally forgot what your first question was, Drew. I apologize.
No, yeah, just in terms of how you would market that to the I mean, granted, okay, so let's take away like the NHL guys who come in, right? Because for them, money's not an object. But let's say it's your 14-year-old who's playing at the local high school. Being a Michigan guy myself, even have on the Maize of Blue today. We'll just say, well, maybe like Grand Rapids Christian or Rockford, one of those schools over there. They got a young hockey player. He's coming in, and he's like, hey, I can come to you and pay however much you're charging them, or I can go to, chain clinic down the road that's $20. How do you convey that value to them to get them that buy-in?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I remember that now. A lot of it, again, is just coming up some sort of value proposition and getting people in the door with some sort of marketing lead. Let's just say initial eval with me is $275. So we'll have through marketing, it's like, hey, this is a $97 eval. It's a huge discount. It's basically it's like 60% discount. Or now I've started to offer like 15-minute movement screens, where we get out the force plates. We do just like quick, free, easy movement screens where I'm able to see a bunch of people in one day, and then explain, and then especially get them into an eval, and then be like, and show them, one, results, but two, how it's different than their previous experiences in PT. And when someone tends to go to, like, there's a lot of really good insurance-based practices out there, but what I'll find is when I'll speak to someone on the phone, if they fill out whatever my top of funnel like ad will be, the first thing they'll be like, well, I went to PT before and it didn't help. Okay, well, what was your PT like? And they're like, I don't know, I just did this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to describe something, and I want you to tell me if this is what you went through. You showed up. When they called you, all they did was ask for your name, date of birth, and your insurance. And then when you showed up, did you hop on the bike for 10 minutes? And then you saw the PT for about 5 or 10 minutes. and then they passed you off to a PTA, and then you did some exercises, and they sat you on a table, hooked you up with a little bit of ultrasound or call them the fuzzy pads. And then after 30 minutes, you went home. And they go, yeah, that's exactly what I did. And how'd you know that? I'm like, because I've been through there, and I know that that doesn't work. And here is why what we do is different. And then you have to explain, you explain what you do, and you explain how what you do is better for them. As part of it too is we offer super bills, and this is a Spry thing, but Spry makes it really easy to just one-click export your super bill. You can give that to your patient, and they're able to get reimbursed anywhere between 50 to 80%, depending on their insurance. And they like that. If they're really money conscious, they like that. But ultimately, when you get them on the table, and you're not restricted by time and and the rule of 8 billing and all these different insurance things, and you can just sit there and listen to them. And again, this is another huge shout out to Spry, but I use the AI scribe every single visit, whether it's an eval or just a normal session, because I can just I have this little mic that I attach to my hat, connect it to my computer, it records the conversation, and I don't have to type. And I can sit there and I can look the patient in the eye and be like, yes, tell me more. I want to hear it. I want to hear it, instead of me looking at my computer and typing head down and looking up and say that again. We just have a normal conversation, human to human interaction. And most of the time, patients don't get that. And then when they leave, they're like, wow, I felt like you really heard me. Or actually, the patient I just had before I hopped on the Zoom, I just got a text on my computer. It just says wow, I feel incredible. I've never had a PT explain what we were doing and why we were doing it like you did today. And I'm to me, that makes me incredibly happy, because one, I know I did a good job, and two, there's nothing I like better than make people feel better. And two, I know on the business side of things, that person's probably going to come back, and they're probably going to have referrals. They're probably going to read a good review, and then it means I can help more people, and then that grows and grows, and I can continue to help. And it's the little things like having an AI scribe where I don't have to type, but just gives me a little bit more of an opportunity to do that. And then also not being restricted by insurance, where I remember working in a clinic where I look at my watch and be like, okay, all right, I need to get 2 units of manual therapy. So exactly 23 minutes and we're done. Let's get you out of the clinic. No, I don't ever look at my watch now. And then sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh, we've been going 15 minutes over. Do you have to get anywhere? Because I'm sorry, we're going late. And it's great, because it allows me to enjoy it. It allows the patients to get the best quality care, and it doesn't feel like healthcare. And that, I think, is probably the biggest one.
I think that's so. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Just one more thing too on this. When we talk about the specialization, right? And I'm just thinking, as somebody who's been on so many of these different sales calls with so many different clients, right? And I'll say we've been really blessed at Spry to have great clients both on the insurance and the cash pay side, and it's been so great to hear their things. And one of the areas that I hear from a lot of folks is, especially when it comes to specialization and things like that. So take you, for instance, and I'm sure that there's folks on here who's thinking the same thing that I have been, is Jamie, you're awesome that you've got this business set up. Coming from the NHL, you have this built-in relationship. How do you scale your business, right? So, we can't replicate you. And I think about when I was at Barwis's place, right, with Mike, is there's only one Mike Barwis, there's only one Jamie Phillips. So how do you scale? Or let's say if I'm a clinic owner and I want to maybe bring somebody in to specialize in something, maybe it's basketball, right? Specialize in basketball. I'm going to train those because I have a area where a lot of basketball players hang out. Great. How from there can they scale that and be able to bring in more people like you, or how are you doing that with your clinic as well, right? In terms of whether it be insurance, cash pay, whatever, how do you plan on scaling this to folks who are not just Jamie Phillips?
Good question. So there's a couple ways to scale. And I'm getting to this point right now. So right now I am a one-man band with everything. The scaling can start. The easiest way to start is to kind of start to offboard tasks to other experts. So things even just social media or marketing or accounting, those are things that take up time, and that's time away from patients. So if you can hire someone or use different AI tools to help you in that sense, you're already scaling. Like scaling itself doesn't have to be, I need 7 locations and blah, 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 blah. You can start as you're delegating your time, you're buying back your time. So that's how it starts there. Basically, any free time I have, I'm working on different sales funnels and automations and all that stuff, so that I don't have to do that. I do enjoy social media editing, so I haven't offboarded that, but I have hired someone who comes in and does social media content and does the film. They do the filming so that I don't have to be constantly recording that stuff. So it's just another task I don't have to do. Now I'm in the process of looking at potentially hiring. With that, again, it's hiring anyone, just going the normal hiring process. Like sometimes you're going to hire people that are really good, and sometimes you're going to hire people that don't work out. For me, one of the reasons I started Ghost and focusing in on hockey is I want to provide an avenue for former hockey players to be able to treat hockey. Like that is what I want. Part of my hiring criteria is you're gonna have to have played hockey, and I know that immediately makes my pool smaller. And being a hockey player, does that automatically guarantee you're going to be a good clinician? No, absolutely not. But I get so many emails from students who are like, "Hey, I played hockey growing up. All I want to do is work with hockey players. How do I do it?" So if I'm able to be like, "Well, I'm hiring. Come, like, let's do an interview process. Let's come here for a week, see if you like it. We'll talk about it. If you're a fit, then we'll hire you on. We'll go from there." And then understanding that, I think as PTs, we also think that like we are the only ones that can fix every problem. Is like trusting that other clinicians are also good at what they do, and so like give them the freedom. They're going to practice their best way. I don't need them to be versions of me. While I like, while I would prefer that they are very, dry needling focused and things like that, because that's what I like. If we get patient results. If someone's not, they're like, "Hey, I love ART or Graston. I get the best results from Graston." I'm like, "Okay, then you can be the Graston guy or girl PT as the clinic. We're going to help build your caseload and kind of build it from there, and then eventually get to the point where it's time to open another location." I'm fortunate that my clinic is inside an ice hockey rink. That's just offers the best direct access to like all the people, all my patient client, like my perfect clientele. They're able to come in and then go practice or practice and come in, and they all know where I am. And so eventually, as I scale into locations, it's most likely going to be opening up in hockey rinks because it makes the most amount of sense. So that's kind of really where like scaling comes into. It's just finding different avenues to delegate tasks, to buy back your time, so that you can either focus purely on treating or purely on marketing, and then giving others the freedom to treat the way they want to, or to help your marketing in the way that best gets results. And then I know I'm rambling, but the last part of that is making sure that you're tracking data. Something I didn't do in previous businesses growing up was I didn't really track. I'm like, where are patients coming from? What are my analytics? Like all these different things, so that you can like look at that 80-20 and be like, what is the 20% that's getting me 80% of the results? And then be like, okay, well, maybe my meta ads aren't hitting home, and I seem to just be getting most of my patients from referrals. I need to reach out to every former patient and offer them, and then be like, "Hey, if you know anyone who would benefit," and like reconnect and do that. And then sorry, the last part is finding different ways to have continued care, right? So if one of the things I have for me is I have the avenue of like strength training, and like I do online strength training, like I guess technically part of the clinic, but like remote athletes, I got about 100-ish people that follow my workout programs online. But having a patient in, and maybe they get to the end of the plan of care, and instead of saying like, "Okay, well, see you when you get hurt next," it's like, "Well, hey, if you want to keep this up, we have, workouts. It's $50 a month. You're on the app, you're dialed in, you're training. That way I can keep an eye on you. And then, if you want to be able to come in for once a month for a rehab session, we also have like a plan, a program that, does it that way." So I guess technically in the business vernacular, you'd call it like an upsell. And like it's basically an upsell into continued care, but that allows you to, one, continue to treat your patients, like knowing that they're getting good guidance. Because like in your example there, like I don't know the quality of strength coaches in high schools. Some high schools are going to have unbelievable strength coaches, and some high schools are just going to have like your dad who used to just watch Pumping Iron with Arnold, and then that's it, right? So it's knowing that it's like, hey, you have a workout that is tailored to you, and it's keeping in mind like some of the areas that we just worked on and focusing on stability, and you can do this on your own at home. If you have any questions, you just shoot me a message in the app. Like, that's all they want, because they know they're going to get better, and you can sleep sound at night knowing you didn't just hand them off to some guy who's just going to make them do crazy deadlifts with horrible form, because you've gone through the process of how to do these things, and you've explained, hey, this is how you deadlift and all these things. So all those different ways is how you work to scale a business. And if it sounds overwhelming, it is very overwhelming. It's overwhelming until it's not. And I think the day it's not is the day you retire from all of it.
Yeah, that if it's not a challenge, it's not fun, right? The challenges are really opportunities differently. So the next question, Jamie, is really, apologies, but a twofold question. So one, you mentioned tracking data. And so how do you track this data, and how do you leverage technology to track this data? And then as you scale and as you expand, how comfortable are you about engaging in some of these alternative payment models, just to diversify the product portfolio? So experimenting with risk-based models or getting some employer contracts in the future. Is that something that is within your interest?
So in terms of tracking analytics, fortunately, technology has kind of got to a place and continues to grow where almost every tool that we use has everything built in. So right now, use Go High Level in terms of, that's my client CRM, where everything's set up. Only paid ads are through Meta ads, and so they give a ton of data. And then you can look at that, see what's working, what's not, and then you're able to like track and export and all that. And then from like even on the accounting side, just having like QuickBooks shows you where your money's going in, where's it coming out, like where these expenses. And so everything's kind of like built in. One of the things that I would say that I would suggest, if someone especially is out there is thinking about either starting their own thing or in a position where they're doing their own thing and looking at trying to leverage things, is it can be very overwhelming. So just pick like one or two things to start and like get really good at them. Like, we use Go High Level because I originally signed up for like a marketing like course. I don't really like Go High Level. So, but I need to understand how it works. And so looking at it in detail. My task tonight when I get home is I'm setting up some sort of like a Instagram automatic DM reply funnel thing, where someone, they do like send the, if you're interested in coming in, shoot me a DM that says rehab, and then automatically it's the AI or whatever, the app automatically sends those. So I don't have to do it, and then it categorizes it so it can say like this worked really well, that worked really well, and so you can go back and you basically look at it and be like, this worked, this didn't work, let's try this, or let's really hammer home that. In terms of other avenues, right now, I mean, if you think about it, could you always be doing more? Yes. In terms of setting up different, I don't ever see that I will take insurance. It just doesn't really make sense to where I'm at. Different revenue streams. I'm in the process of acquiring a gym. So that will be something that I just own, but I'll also have access to, which will again kind of be like one of those upsell things where it's like, hey, you can do your rehab and training here. And under the guise of a strength coach that I've hired that I know is very good, like you'll be in a good spot. Looking at, I don't think at this time, it doesn't make a lot of sense to sign a contract with like like say a hockey organization or a high school. It makes more sense from where I am right now to kind of just do like workshops, because one, it gets me in front of people and it's a little bit more personable. And that way I can provide discounts and work directly with athletes. Plus a lot of like more universities, organizations typically are associated with like healthcare systems. So like breaking into that, I don't know if it's really worth the time and effort. I would rather just reach out to the director of Kalamazoo hockey and be like, hey, this is who I am. If you ever have a time, like I'd love to talk to you and like be able to do workshop for athletes, because if there's a way that I can keep them healthy and on the ice all season, it's gonna be great. And then most of the time people are really open to it and they're like, yeah, like come talk. And we sit with parents, we get the force plates, we do the strength testing, we show where the weaknesses are, do the classic, like put them in like a mechanically disadvantaged position. So I use 2 fingers and I can do a straight leg test where I beat them and be like, hey, you're a 16-year-old athlete and I am stronger than you with 2 fingers. Like, come on, like we gotta get that up. And then, it gets good laughs. It shows that like, hey, like healthcare can be fun and challenging and exactly what we want. So right now it's basically there's 3 ways to kind of improve like a business, where it's either do more of what you're doing, do it better, or do something new. And right now I'm kind of in the position where it's like, let's just do more of what we're already doing. That will help scale, and then kind of basically reassess around Q4 of this year to see if what we did worked, and then that way kind of create a plan for 2026 in terms of how we're gonna, if we need to diversify, and if we're gonna diversify, how we're gonna diversify.
Yeah, that is a wonderful answer, and I think that's exactly how you just build and grow, right? Especially through creating diversified portfolio of products and processes. So the next question for you is building a community, and building a community as a specialist. How much do you leverage your immediate presence where your practice is located? So your just direct area. And how does that influence your monetization, but also how does that, do you think it's a constraint on scaling and growing when you have a specific location just based on geography?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate that the rink that I'm in, Southside Ice Arena, is owned by the local hockey association, and I work with them. So I help kind of, I'm on the ice 2 or 3 evenings a week, like coaching their goalies, because I'm still super passionate about that. But that is built in like a really good relationship where I'm able to put up a massive banner in the rink at not a very expensive price, and all those different like upsides. And that like is just kind of like leveraging connections. It's like anything. It's just like leveraging connections, doing what you do. So, and then there, it also gives me direct access to to parents and athletes. Like they come to the gym, they see the clinic and they go, oh, what's that? And it's like, hey, like come check it out. This is who I am. I'm able to have banners, be like, hey, like if you're playing through pain, or are you trying to injury proof your game, or whatever the eye catching called. And then the thing is with a call to action, and a lot of it's just like, come say hi, like come say hi. Like you guys see me on the ice, you see me coaching, like come say hi and we'll talk about it. And then usually when one athlete comes in, they get good results, it just grows and grows and grows. Kind of like any sort of organic growth. It just happens. It helps that I'm there. It'd be like the same as, if you somehow were able to set up a treatment table on the side of a football field, like people are going to look at it and be like, oh, what is that? Let's come talk about it. And then you're able to kind of grow your business that way. There are some elements, yeah, you are restricted in scaling, but I guess it depends on how you want to scale. If you're in a standalone building, like how do you want to scale? Do you want to take over the unit beside you and expand into a gym? My area, the gym that I'm looking at acquiring it exists inside the rink. So that's part of the scaling that also makes things easier. But if I ever got to the point where it's like, hey, I do need more space, then I would have to look elsewhere for that. But I think that goes regardless of where your location is. When I was looking at different locations, most of them were shared spaces with other training facilities because it just made the most sense. I'd still run into the same limitations that we have. And then again, another part of the advantage that I have is because I have a working relationship with the building owners, negotiating rent and expansion things are a lot easier because it's not, I don't have like an anonymous landlord who I'm just renting the ice from, or just using the space from. Like I have a relationship with these people. I'm on the ice with them. I'm talking with them about how we can improve their athletes and how we can improve their health, but also like how we can improve their association as a whole. And so if that means, maybe I need to, maybe we're, if I'm willing to, pay to improve the building in any way, then we can do that. And that is, again, like a relationship driven part of it, which makes this situation unique. I can understand that if you are renting a space and it's just like a classic commercial unit, how you are limited to what you have. But if that's the case, you have to kind of look elsewhere to find what is the best space, which makes sense. I mean, a lot of clinics do move around because they outgrow their space or they need to downsize. And that's part of business and learning, is you have to scale up or scale down depending on what you need.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I will say too, I think it's nice for you, and I'm sure you'll echo the statement as well, is just the type of athletes I think that you work with. I think hockey guys are totally underrated for just how good of people they are. Whether that be even the professionals all the way down through, right? And it seems like you've built up a nice community to where as you're doing this and being able to market yourself and like I know from example, like yeah, think of like Jeff Petrie who plays for the Wings, right? Back when I was training with Mike and playing college ball. I mean, I'll never forget him holding onto the sled as I'm trying to run, right? I mean, they're just good people, and I feel like you've been able to build this community there, right? To be able to have all these folks there, and that word of mouth is huge. Looking at some of like the questions in here, um, had one about how are you doing your HEP exercise programs, things like that? Which system are you using for that? I know that ours is a little bit it's geared more towards less, I guess, specialty and whatnot within our app. What are you using, especially for once folks are done as well in their exercises? How does that work for that?
So yeah, so I just switched over from a different training. I originally was using a program called Trainerize. That was prior to PT when I had an online training business, and right now I'm in the process of, well, last a couple of weeks ago, I use Bridge Training. I don't know if it's owned by Exos Performance, but I did the classic, chop through, went through all the sales calls with all of it. It just made the most sense. It was the most seamless, and it also allowed me to categorize my athletes, because I'll have my rehab patients, but then I'll also have performance patients that might not necessarily be through Ghost, and so it allows me to categorize it. I do
Oh, cool.
occasionally I do use Wibby a little bit, depending on the patient. If they come in, like a lot of them, if they have their own training program, they don't need to use Bridge. And so for me, you pay X amount for as many clients. There's no point putting them on and using a space that someone else could use and I pay extra for it. So if they're coming in, they just need general HEP stuff. Yeah, I use Wibby. Integrates nice. Are most of the exercises that I use on there? No, but I have a massive archive of video exercises I've already recorded that I can just upload. So yeah, I use Bridge. It works great. And then when I just make sure that when I'm doing my HEP or my soaps, that I'm just typing in exactly what they have in their program and I'm keeping it up to date. So it's a tad bit more work, but like I said, when I use the AI scribe, like an eval, which usually is 30 minutes of typing, is now 5 minutes of typing. So for me to add in a couple extra exercises to
Yeah.
the plan, then it's not really a big deal at all.
Perfect. And then we had another question come through too. Um, I actually love the question because it's something that could apply no matter what folks are doing, and it was centered around the workshops, right? Whether that be, and I think it's a great idea. I love that you do it with the youth thing because it's a great way to get folks in, and then you could, like you mentioned, 60% of your business is on that kind of preventative measure. So absolutely love that. And really it's something that you could do, whether it be sport or just mean you could go to a business, etc. Right? Workshops are great. What would you say on a workshop for you to call it a success? How many attendees would you like to have, and then what kind of a conversion to from workshop to patient do you like to see for you to sit there and go, okay, yep, this was a success and something that I should do again next year or do it again the same way?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. The first thing I would say is make sure you're doing your research with it too. So like you have realistic expectations. So I'll give myself for an example, and then I'll give a general like orthopedic clinic, cash-based clinic example. So for me, most of the time I will speak to a hockey team. Like it's very rare when I reach out to an organization will like the entire organization show up. So it's actually a lot easier for me to go and be like, okay, Fox Motors, which is right here, Fox Motors U16 girls AAA team. I'm gonna talk to them. Okay, I know that they have 20 girls on their roster. Okay, so like boom, done. Like that. There's not like I'm not gonna be disappointed if there are less because I know things are busy. But like I don't come in being like, oh, I hope there's 100 people there because it's just not gonna work. So it's just like we usually go team at a time or like one or two teams. Then from there, usually conversion, depending on what the offer is, so it'll be tailored depending on the age and the team. But out of that, let's just say 20, because it's a good number to work with. If I can get anywhere between 5 to 7 in for a paid eval, that is like an unbelievable success. The reality is you're probably looking at about 20 to 30. So you're looking at around four-ish, 4 or 5 is the more realistic. But sometimes I do, what I'll do in this, especially if it's like in preventative care, is when you'll get one of the 20 athletes and you'll run them through basically a full movement screen where they're on the force plates. I usually hook up the iPad to like a TV will be in the room, and then I'll show the data and be like, hey, like you're a female athlete and you're doing some sort of hamstring, supine hamstring activation from a 90-90 position. And it's like your right side is 30% weaker than the other. And then we just show them box jump tests or a depth jump, and they'll land, and I'll have my iPad filming it, and they'll show in slow motion, like look at the knee valgus they have on that right side that's 30% weaker. And like that one athlete gets the full boat as it would be as someone comes in. But then you also have 19 potential clients and their parents who just saw, oh, hopefully my son or daughter doesn't have that. Let's come in. So that's when I'll have the free movement session, like basically go through exactly what I just did in the webinar. With that, I would usually say I bat about 50 or 60%. And then from there, you're converting those into a full eval where it's like, hey, I know this is we don't have time, but like, look, there's some things that I noticed. Let's get you set up for a full eval. It's a full 60 minutes. We'll take the time and the effort to do exactly what we need. If you're then, so that would be like my specific example with it. If you're just a general cash-based clinic owner, usually like CrossFit's probably the easiest one to get into, like a CrossFit gym or like a performance like strongman gyms. Basically, like do your research. Hopefully, you have a relationship with the gym owner. So it's hard to like, it's more difficult to like cold email the gym owner. If you are a member of that gym or you come in and done some drop-in classes and you've developed a relationship, that's when it's a lot easier for them to say yes, but two, it's also a lot easier for them to be like, hey, like what is your current enrollment right now? And like you can start to like, you have some idea of like terms of what to expect, if it's worth your time. Like if you're going to a hyper specialized personal training gym and the guy's like, yeah, I have 6 clients I see a month and I charge them each $5,000 a month, doesn't make sense. You're going to maybe get 2 people. But if you go to a CrossFit gym, like, yeah, we have 250 members. This is our peak hours. This is what you're going to see. This is how we're going to market it. And then here's a sign up link and blah, 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 blah. Then you have a realistic expectation of what to get, or what you're going to get. And then you can also tailor your workshop, to what those people need. So ultimately, it's about developing that relationship ahead of time so that you aren't going in blind. And you can really tailor it the way that's going to work. So you have a relationship and they say, hey, a lot of our athletes struggle getting in a full rack position with fingertip, hands closed in a clean. Then okay, like I'm going to be focusing on shoulder. We're going to do a shoulder health workshop. We're going to give you some tangible exercises that you can do that's going to increase that shoulder flexion and shoulder rotation, allow you to open up that lats, maybe do a banded anterior joint move with the shoulder, and then they're already going to see, so they're going to do it. You can kind of tweak it a little bit and use a little marketing magic where they test their rack position when they're cold. Then you run them through like a full, like, mobility session, and then their mobility is really good at the end. But you'll see like, wow, my shoulders feel great. And you're like, that's awesome. Like, if you like, I noticed you had a couple things here and there, like, come see me. Here's my card. Because you came to this, I appreciate it. Here's a voucher for like $100 off. Come see it. And then from there, hopefully you've also collected everyone's emails. So you can then shoot out an email to everyone and be like, hey, it's Dr. Jamie. Thank you so much for coming. Here's the recording of your session. If you want to come in, I'm offering a special for, if you book in the next, this week, we'll get you in. You can book at any time, but the $100 discount is only for this week because I have another workshop next week and I want to make sure you guys get in first. And then you can use your marketing magic there. So long story long, make sure it's very targeted and specific. That's when we talk about that data and stuff, because you don't want to go in blind. You don't want to waste your time. And you also don't want to take your, a couple hours out of your weekend where maybe that you don't work on weekends and then spend it with like 6 people or less because for whatever reason, you didn't do the work in the back end. So develop those relationships, find that data, look at what works for you, and then try to recreate that as many places as you can sustain where it makes time and financial sense.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We do have another one in here. It's funny, it's a small world. A former Northern Michigan U hockey grad and player wants to know if you want to drop the gloves Kachuk Brothers style. No, I'm just kidding. They did not say the dropping the gloves part, but just wanted to give you a shout out for the work you're doing for your patients. They love it, and supporting the vision of the former hockey player. So they wanted to make sure they got that in there. And then we do have one that came in first, but Bridge, I'm going to skip you. We'll come back to you. A different one from Samantha. Great question here. Just talking about, do you have them pay for the full package or single treatments? How do you do that? And then we'll come back up to Bridges one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So for Samantha, I have both options. And when you're looking at structuring, and typically in terms of if you look at any business, it usually makes more sense to buy a package because it's going to be a discounted per session rate. And so one, it guarantees immediate income for you. And then the longer the package that someone buys, they're going to get better results. And then better results equal better referrals, better reviews. So I do offer single visits now based on different the direct access laws in your state or your province or wherever you're located will kind of influence that. So in Michigan, it's 12 visits or 21 sessions, whichever comes first. Usually I explain that and then explain why the full package makes sense. And then I say like, hey, you can pay $275 per visit, or it ends up being $225 per visit if you do this, and you're already going to need 6 visits anyways. So let's just save money now. And then they go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so one, it helps them and it helps you. It makes the most amount of sense. And then Kimmy, I'll look past the fact that you went to Northern. It's a pretty big mistake, but it's, we can't all be perfect. Yeah, I appreciate your kind words. And like I said, I'm not far from Chicago. So if you're ever up this way, I know that the girls 12U you'll probably play some of either the Fox teams here that I work for or up in Graha. So if you're ever this way and you want to stop in and say hello and check it out, you're more than welcome to come in. And that goes to anyone on the call. Don't hesitate to reach out in whether that's social media or any of the things avenues I have, because I like talking PT and I like talking business. And if you couldn't tell from this webinar, I just like to talk.
No, you're awesome. It's been a wonderful conversation. Just for the sake of everybody's time, I'm gonna start wrapping things up, and I'll ask one last question from one of our very own, and that is, how much interest would you have in using a human health data? So data from wearables, data from Apple Health, and would you want to see that integrated into the EMR solution, or would you want to see it somewhere else presented to you?
So this is a very good question. Now, would I like it integrated into the EMR? I think yes, because I think more is like usually having more options is better. One, for a surprise point of view, it's an easier selling point. But for us as clinicians, it just gives us more avenues and things that we can use. I don't really use human health data as much as you might think, because the higher level athletes that I have, typically they have stuff that they'll use like a catapult system or a Polaris system, where they'll have someone who's hired specifically to track that recovery. If a patient that wants it as an individual, I don't necessarily need that data to be able to tweak my information or my treatment. So I will have force plates. So for like a lot of the athletes that are in during the season, we will do like jump testing and stuff, which can give us a lot of information on different fatigue levels and all that stuff, which will allow me, which wouldn't really change my rehab plan of care, but will help guide them in terms of the gym and training that we'll do. I do hesitate, and this is a personal opinion, on some of the wearable data, because what I find is that data will nocebo athletes or people into problems. Whereas you will usually, like, you wake up and you feel fantastic and you're like, oh, I feel great. I'm going to squat a house today. Like, this is great. Then you look at your Whoop and it's like your recovery score was 20%, and immediately they feel bad. And so that is where I tend not to recommend it, because I usually will say, let your body be your guide. And so for my athletes on Bridge, we have like morning check-ins where it's going to say like, how did you sleep? How do you feel? And it's mainly subjective things, because if they are feeling good, they're going to feel good on the ice. And if they are feeling bad, they're probably going to feel bad on the ice. So I don't want to trick them into feeling one way or the other, regardless of what the data says, because sometimes the data isn't super consistent across the board. And like I said, like you'll nocebo athletes, they'll nocebo themselves into a negative outcome or feeling because they're hyper vigilant and neurotic to whatever the data says. So I usually go with, let your body be your guide. Like, you wake up and you don't feel good, you're going to have to practice anyways. So let's find ways to help you feel better so that you get something out of practice, not waking up and seeing your score, your Whoop score being terrible because, you had a glass of wine or something the night before. And then all of a sudden your whole day's ruined and you basically just wasted it because all you thought about was, well, my recovery score is bad, therefore my day is ruined. And so that's why I don't tend to use those with high performing athletes, because most of them know their body so well that it doesn't benefit. It really only hurts. It doesn't really help.
It's a terrific question, especially from a accomplished athlete. I think it's a perfect piece of information to guide others into the utilization of this data. So to wrap things up, I want to thank you, Dr. Jamie Phillips, for being a part of the SPRY webinar. And I want to thank you for being an exemplary clinician, being an asset to both your professional community, but also your neighbor community. And so this has been wonderful. I really hope that our audience are able to reach you and both speak to you about your accomplishments, but also be able to help you grow and help you scale in the future. So thank you for this, and thank you everyone for joining us for this SPRY webinar, and we hope to see you at the next one.